Some days nothing is going wrong. You're not going through a crisis, you're not overwhelmed, you're just tired or you don't feel like showing up, and this is where a lot of people fall off. Hi, my name is Eileen. I'm a first-gen Latina who grew up in a chaotic low-income household, but still managed to build my dream life, all by using my 5 core systems that I walk you through throughout my videos. So if you're interested in watching those, I'll link them down below in the caption. In the moment, it's not that they're not capable of fulfilling what they need to get done. It's that they're simply just choosing not to. And these moments matter a lot more than you think. What ruins consistency isn't even some big moment. It's really the accumulation of small decisions that you make when you decide not to show up for yourself. It's things like hitting snooze 3, 4, leading to 5 days in a row. It's pushing a workout from one day to the next and then the next, and that spirals into the following week. It's really from not showing up for yourself in that first time that you could have taken action and you were more than capable of doing so, but you just decided not to. A lot of it even happens at the very beginning of your day. It happens within even the first 5 minutes of your day. When I went to college, I was living in Queens in New York, and I was commuting all the way to Stony Brook University, which meant that I had a 3.5-hour train ride commute to get to my university every single day because I was a commuter. And what that meant was that if I did not catch the train at a very specific time, I was not going to make it to the rest of my classes that day. So what that meant for me is even if I was so tired, I got up. I got up as soon as that alarm rang. And I wasn't getting up because I felt well rested and I was ready to go at 4:50 in the morning. I was getting up because I knew that not getting up had more severe consequences. I knew that not getting up in that moment meant that my entire day would be thrown off. And that's really when I started to realize that it's not about motivation. It's really when you understand that one decision can lead to a chain reaction. Once you break that first one, it really becomes easier to not show up to the next one and the following. And just to be clear, this is not the same as the other roadblocks that we've talked about. This is not the same as those unanticipated life circumstances that can come up suddenly that you weren't expecting. It's not the same as when you've pre-planned around a super busy day that you knew was coming up. It's not when you are overwhelmed from all the life things and mentally drained because you had been showing up consistently throughout the day. This one is a little bit different. It's when you know that you have the capacity to follow through, but you're still choosing not to. That moment there is truly what shapes consistency. This is exactly where your 5 systems come into play, because in that very moment, you shouldn't be relying on motivation. You should have a structured framework that you can fall back on. And this is really where your systems are stepping in. Your identity design is reminding you who you are and who you said you would be. Emotional stability keeps you from getting pulled into the way that you're feeling in that moment. Financial security is removing and preventing any background stress from being an added layer, an added obstacle in your life. Environmental alignment is reducing friction in your environment so that it makes it a lot easier for you to just start. And execution system is giving you a clear plan so that you really don't have to think about it. You're really just showing up to follow through. And all of this is really to support you for those times when you don't feel like following through. And when you don't feel like showing up, you already have systems that you can rely on that really make it so easy for you to simply just execute. So what do you do in these moments, and how do you fall back on your identity design systems so that you can push through even when these moments in your life come up? The first thing you can do is to protect the first decision. And by first decision, I mean the very first action when it comes to that when it comes to following through on a goal for that day. You don't focus on the entire goal that you have set out. You just focus on doing that one action that gets you started. For example, going back to my commute train ride when I was going to Stony Brook University, what that would look like for me is getting up at the first sound of the alarm, just getting out of bed. In other life examples, it could look something like, you're gonna work out, so maybe you just put on your workout clothes and that's the very first action that you take. Really focus on the first step that it takes to execute your goal. And once you're able to fulfill that first step, honestly, momentum just kind of follows through. And the reason why it can follow through so naturally is because you have that framework built where you know exactly how you need to show up. Another tip is to create external accountability. For this one, you're not relying on how you feel in the moment. You're creating a situation and a circumstance where there are consequences if you don't follow through. So you are then motivated to follow through based on the consequences and not necessarily how you feel. What this would look like for me is when I know I need to get cardio in for the week and I want to hold myself accountable, I'll book a cardio dance class that has a cancellation fee. And in an effort to avoid that cancellation fee, I'm going to make sure I show up to that class, whether I'm tired, whether I'm exhausted, whether anything has come up. I'm trying to avoid that hefty cancellation fee. And so the consequence of not showing up to me would be worse than if I were to just attend the class. Set up your life and your tasks in a way that the consequences can guide you towards actually fulfilling the goal. And it'll make it a lot harder for you to back out of it. Another tip to follow through is to lower the standard. We've kind of talked about this one in a previous video, but after you take that first step, that first action, maybe that's still not enough for you to show up at 100%, but you can still show up at 20% or even 10%. And maybe you don't get that full task or that full goal completed as you've planned for, but you've done something. You've taken the first step and you're still showing up in some way. The goal here is to avoid dropping to zero. So even if you can't show up at 100%, you're still doing something to follow through. It looks something like instead of doing a full workout, maybe you only prioritize a quarter of it, or instead of doing the full workout, you switch it out for a walk or a run. Maybe instead of doing an hour block of deep work like you've intended, maybe instead you do 20 minutes. And for this one, you're really not trying to be perfect. It's really just about maintaining that momentum and staying in motion. And lastly, stop negotiating with yourself. A lot of us give ourselves the chance to negotiate on whether or not we're going to show up, and that really just wastes time that we could be allocating towards just taking that first step, which would be something like getting out of bed, putting on that workout set, opening your laptop for that deep work block. And that negotiation is pulling you out of alignment. You already have a framework to fall back on. You've reduced external factors and internal factors that can impact how you show up. The execution part really is making it so easy for you to just do the thing. And when you start to negotiate with yourself, it pulls you out of alignment, and if anything, it makes it harder for you to actually follow through on your system. So instead of giving yourself space to negotiate on your goals, decide in advance that when these moments come up, you're going to show up in one way or another, even if that means at 10-20% and not 100%. Make that decision now so that when that moment comes up and you try to negotiate on whether you follow through or not, you're not giving yourself an out. You're going to show up at some capacity. That truly is how you're going to protect getting started and at least maintaining minimum momentum. I think it's also really important for us to remember that when we fall off our goals, it's not just from one big situation. It's the accumulation of those small moments where you've negotiated with yourself, when you've decided to take not even that first step, when you've convinced yourself that you can push it off to the next day or the next week or the next month. It's the accumulation of those smaller moments. If you focus on protecting them, realigning to your systems quickly, and following through in some capacity, you can avoid falling off completely. A lot of times it really is just taking that first step that you need to do in order for momentum to follow through. And that momentum will flow naturally because you've done the pre-work through your systems. So when these moments come up and you just can't seem to get yourself out of this comfort zone, remember that you can do 4 things in this moment. Promise yourself that you're going to take that first step. Lower your standard, even if it's not showing up at 100%, you at minimum show up at 15 or 20%. Set up your life so that some of those important goals come with consequences if you don't follow through. Promise yourself now that you're not going to negotiate. You're simply going to do at least the first step to get into that momentum. When it's within your capacity, this is the most important moment for you to follow through. That is truly what is going to create consistent behaviors. And this is exactly why the systems matter. When you don't feel like showing up, you're not relying on motivation. You're falling back on your systems framework, on your identity design, on the 5 systems that we've talked about. You're falling back on that to keep you going and keep the momentum going. And you're relying on what you've already built. I really hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And I can't wait to keep building with you.